On that note, if I may then, hand over the microphone to our speaker, Ms. Woo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivan, for your introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hui Qin here from Malaysia. Selamat petang. Today, we are going to talk about bridging gaps and building community. You'll be wondering, what has it got to do with my teaching life? I'm a teacher. I'm not some kind of community volunteers, but then let's have a look at it. First of all, when we talk about gaps, what are the gaps that we face in our life? And as you know, I am a mother of 3 children. My eldest is 15, my second is 12, and my youngest is 7. And we do have this community for parents to share so-called homework and assignments that is like requested by the teachers. So sometimes you can see that some kids, they could not finish the assignments, copying the assignments that was assigned by the teachers. So that is when, as parents, we came in and filled the gaps. And that is how we build the community. So as simple as that. What should we do with a community? We are trying here to bridge the gap. So today we are going to discuss questions on this. You might be asking yourself, as a teacher, I'm very busy and I have lots of work to do every day. Should I join a community? What can I get from joining a community? What role can I play? And how do I get started if I want to? So let's have a look at the points of discussion today. First of all, to get started, I would like you to launch a poll. Melissa, would you please launch the poll? Are you currently a member of any community? So maybe yes. Online communities like groups and forums. Maybe yes. In-person communities, neighborhood, religious groups. Yes, both online and in-person. Or no, not at all. Oh, the numbers are coming in. I've got 100 responses. Come on. So another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so more than 60% of you shared. Yeah, only 18% say no, not at all. And most of you say yes. So either online, in person, or both. And do you still remember, why did you join it? So the question is, should I join a community? And do I have a choice? Some of you might be in your school, teachers here, so in your school, and there are different types of communities. I would say one is assigned, another type is voluntary. And of course, in the middle is assigned and voluntary. What's the difference? For assigned community, I would say it's more or less work-related and in-house. For example, I am the head of the English language department of my school. So under me and one of my colleagues, both of us are the head of the department, we have about 30 teachers together. So that makes us a community. And of course, this is assigned. You have no choice, but you have to work under this so-called community, and it's work related. However, sometimes you have some voluntary communities, which is like your yoga group, maybe, and some of different other groups. It might be your hobbies, your personal interests, or some kind of service, like community service, in the neighborhood or religious group. And of course, if we could have our assigned and voluntary personal interests to be combined together and form a community of assigned and voluntary group in our workplace, will it work? So what are things to share here? I'm not sure if you have this community in your own school, but for us, we are together, and gradually we are slowly forming this community. It can be intentional. Sometimes, most of the time, it is a little bit like unintentional. Why do I say that? Let's have a look at this. We have this teaching and learning community. So as the time goes, under the same department, you will see that some teachers who are closer to each other, they will have their own group and they will share the materials together. They will go out and have lunch, dinner together, and sometimes they share information among each other. That is voluntary. We didn't say you have to form this group, but then they say, come on, we are close to each other. Why not? We share things. Whatever material that I have typed, I'll share it with you. Then whatever that you have prepared, you share it with me. So that kind of groups are gradually forming in the school as well. So let's have a look at this. What if we could form this group of assigned and voluntary group together, of course, intentionally, because growth should be intentional. So with our profession of all the teachers, what you have your concept in teaching and learning, and some combined personal interests, including, for example, me myself, I am especially good at IT because I was an IT leader in my school as well, and I'm particularly good at this. So I can share. That's my personal interest. And that does not really have to do with my planning and other workload. So we can share things when we have this kind of personal interest. And that is how we can bridge the gaps. And another thing that we can share, for example, I am a Toastmaster. A Toastmaster, the tagline is where leaders are made. So we attended lots of different events and we had different workshops. When we can use that part of things that we learned and we shared it in the community, we applied it in our life. And that is how we are slowly transforming this assigned community to a little bit more towards the voluntary part. And we work together in a motivated way, and we have the positive vibes when we are together. And then, what can I get from joining? So since I say it could be assigned and voluntary, and we have to combine them together, it means if you don't want to share, it's all right. And how much you want to share. So is it worth my time? The big question is, whenever we ask teachers, come on teachers, share your ideas, share how you conduct your lessons in the class. Then the first question sometimes they will ask is, really, you want me to share? What can I get from joining this community? And you know, that's my time. I prepared the PowerPoint slides and I prepared all the material. Is it worth my time? And I would definitely say yes. Why? Because this teaching and learning community that you might have in mind, you are not alone. Most of the time, teachers have problems with sometimes resources. So sharing materials together is already a norm. And in our school, we have this shared drive, and we share everything the teachers have done. If they feel like it, they will share it on the share drive. And any teacher who teach that level, they can just download it on just one click. So sharing of materials is one thing. Sharing of ideas is like they will have demo teaching, demo lesson with all the other teachers, so you can share pedagogy and methodology. I think more importantly, in the profession part, we have to share how we handle teaching and learning issues. My school is one of the largest school in Malaysia, largest high school in Malaysia. In each of our class, there are about 50 students. And of course, how are we going to handle these 50 students? There are students who are mixed ability. There are students who have attitude issues, okay, then how are we going to handle all this? We always need the support of our friends, our colleagues. So most of the time, I think when we share things, the first and second, yes, most of the time teachers share all this, because in Asian culture, we like to share things that are good. And how about problems and issues that we are facing? Actually, we can support each other as well, especially when you face different students, sometimes different parents. We have different issues, and by supporting each other, you will be motivated, you will be encouraged, you will feel that you are not alone. So we can actually share things together in the community. For personal interest, for example, all of you here joined these wonderful sessions from yesterday, today, and then tomorrow. You might get something new, new ideas, new tools, and new ways of teaching. Then, how about your colleagues who did not join? Would you share it with them as well? So you can share all these personal interests, like using online tools like Padlet. I think you have heard about it, and setting online assignments, dealing with technical issues, and etc. For me, I particularly like public speaking. So I sometimes share the way of presenting or being more expressive to students, especially when we choose the words and how do we engage some humor in presentation as well. So we can share things like that other than just material and ideas. And then this is what I think, okay? This is what I shared during our meeting of our level meeting, different levels teachers shared together. This is what I shared. It was really simple. We used Jamboard, and this is the group work done by my students, okay? This is a very simple one. So I was like, okay, I'll just share the idea, and you can do much better than me. And students did this, and of course, online lesson from the past 18 months, okay, in Malaysia, we just started our in-person lesson on 1st of November. Sadly to say, we have been using online lessons for about 18 months, so on and off. So it was a hard time. When we first started, teachers, they were clueless about what to do. So ideas came in gradually. We shared our workload together. You prepare the presentation slides, and I will do the recording, and we post that videos online, things like that. So this is how community works with each other, and how it is important in our, especially during this pandemic. So how about post-pandemic? When the pandemic is over, are we going to still continue sharing ideas, materials like that? I think, yes, why not? We actually provided a good and positive vibes among each other in our environment. So I would say it's good. So they will ask me, oh, Hui Qin, how are we going to do group work online, 50 students? How are we going to do that? So we had a way. It was quite troublesome, but we managed to do it. And this is also from another group. So this is like what we normally do in person. But everything, we want the same result effectively. We have to move it online. And this one is what my one of my teachers shared. Okay, I shared, and then she said, oh, I got the idea, and I asked my students to do it. And they can do much better. In our culture, we would say there's a saying that to throw a brick, I would like to attract jade from other people. So sharing and of course building this community is going to help not only the students, but us as teacher as well. So I'll be pleased to see that you have better ideas than mine, and I can use your idea, and in the future I will come up with some other creative ideas as well. So let's see another point. What role can I play in the community? So some teachers would say, well, yes, I'd like to join this community, or I would like to form this community in our school. So what role can I play? I think that is something to do like how much should you contribute. So how much you want to contribute, that is also another question. There are many different roles in a community, I would say. So Confucius once said, there's always someone to learn from, right? So all the teachers, we are together. We can't have everyone to contribute the same efforts. It's not realistic. I'll say there are three types in a community, three categories of members in a community. First, they are leaders. Secondly, they are supporters. And finally, they are members. So no matter what community that you join, you can do a little bit of reflection or think about the communities that you have joined. Don't you think there are some people who are leading? And then there are some people who always say, yeah, I support your idea. Yes, I support you. And there are also members who are there just to watch and observe. That is normal because in every group, it is very realistic that we can't ask everyone to contribute the same amount of efforts. So with these three groups, what do they need to do? So as members, if you only want to join, you say, sounds good, not bad. Yeah, I think I should join a community, a learning and teaching community, or any community that helps in your personal growth. Then if you're interested, yes, that makes you a member. You can be a member because you are interested and you are willing to share things that you have read before, the ideas that are good, or seminars or webinars that you think that it should be recommended. Share among yourself, share in your community. If you are willing to do that, you can be a member. Okay, so it is the largest group of the community. And next, if you're willing to do a little bit more, and you are interested, of course, just like members, and you are willing to contribute. For example, some of you are willing to share your pedagogy, your lesson plan, and of course, a demo of the lesson. That would be much better because if you share your lesson plan and how you teach the lesson, all the teachers will have clearer ideas. And of course, in a community, we have senior teachers and of course, younger teachers. And during this pandemic, you can see that most of the time, these two groups of teachers, they will face different types of problems. For more senior teacher, they'll face, technology is a problem because we are doing online lessons, and they have been doing in-person lessons for so long. They would think about how am I going to transfer everything from the physical classroom to the online classroom. So that's one group. And another group, some younger teachers, digital natives, they would think, how am I going to make it more effective? Or how am I going to use the tools that are available to make my classes, my lessons more effective? So these two groups of people, they can actually share ideas and contribute to each other. One group, they have experience, they are very experienced, and they can share things that the younger groups might not see. And the younger, they have the skills and IT knowledge to teach the senior groups. Actually, in my group, our most senior teacher is 61 years old. And she is like our role model because she's always willing to share and willing to learn. So in our meeting, our regular meeting, sometimes she asks lots of questions. And of course, because of the IT knowledge that she lacked of, she's still willing to learn despite her seniority. So that is why we admire, and she is definitely one of my supporters in our community because she's there as a role model. And how about leaders? Leaders, I think, especially like the head of the department, you have to be passionate about sharing. You have to be passionate about teaching and learning. And I believe all of you here today, you're passionate about learning, because as a teacher, we have to learn and grow in order to help our students to learn and grow as well. So we have to lead by example if possible. Whenever I discover a new tool or a new technique, I will try to learn it first. Like, for example, we learned a lot of screen recording tools. Like I tried out OBS and some other tools. I have to try it out myself, do a demo, and tell my teachers, oh, I discovered something like this. Why don't you try? Let's try it together. So leading by examples, like trying new things, I think is very important as for a community to work. And you have to be able to manage people and delegate. Sometimes people will say, okay, all teachers doing the same amount of work, that is called fair. But for me, I would say you give the task to different teachers according to their ability is called fair. So what is fair? Sometimes management, they will have different ideas. Since all of you here are teachers, then you should be doing the same task, especially during online lesson. However, I think when we work together, for example, I can do recording easily. And I'll say, okay, why don't you prepare the PowerPoint slides for me? Since you can't really do the recording, you prepare the PowerPoint slides for me and I'll do the recording. We work together happily. And you are not asked to do something that you don't feel comfortable with. So that is why we can actually delegate different tasks to people, to teachers who are really good at it. So as you can see, I can face the camera easily. So most of the time I will do the recording. Why not? And most of the time, the teachers, they will provide the materials for me. Then in the end, we upload all these learning and teaching materials online for the students. That was last year when we were doing this LMS, learning management system, and upload all the videos. Okay, so there won't be a lot of leaders here. I would say 2 to 5 or 6 people, it will be good enough. So you will be in charge of different parts of it, and you will delegate the work to the appropriate candidate, the appropriate teacher to do it. And everyone is happy with what they have been doing. So we are not going to ask someone who are still struggling with making PowerPoint to do the recording. That's not feasible, and the effect won't be the best. So if we want the best result, we delegate the work to the best person who can do it most effectively and efficiently. So the last question, how do I get started? Yeah, I think it is going to work. Yeah. So how do I get started? Who should I look for? I would say you start looking around you. Who are the people around you? Are they interested? Yes. If they are interested, get them together. If you can get them together, then you can start from a really small group. Like all of you are teaching in the same level, then you can form a group. And of course, like I say, it needs 3 categories for the community to work. And one of you can take the lead as the leader. So when you lead, you say, okay, I found this Cambridge online experience useful. So let's join. You share the information. And most of the time, when we share materials or there are different communities online, when we browse through everything like forums, like most of the time, the community that we join online is for us to get resources, right? Okay. So there are lots of resources online. There are different websites, that different forums that we can get resources. However, how are we going to use the resources to its fullest of effectiveness? We need the lesson plan, and better off, we need the demo lesson. So if we have the experience, why don't you share? You can share with your group of people, the group of teachers that you have together, you are closer together, you can support each other and you will be able to do it. And this is how the community works. And sometimes I have teachers, because sometimes we are under the weather. There are teachers who have issues in the lesson with classroom management. And when they tell us, we try to motivate them and try to give that leaning shoulder. And actually, you don't have to find a solution, because sometimes there isn't any solution and they feel better. There are so many times that our teachers come and go. Some say it's too stressful. Some say, no, I think I have too much work to do and I can't really go on. So I think a community is very important. If you can find this category, these three categories of people, leaders, supporters, and members together, why not? Why not? A community will help each other. A community can always be there to encourage people, and you yourself can be encouraged as well. So look around. If there are people whom you know that you can work together with, why not form a group of people here, and then you will be able to go on with the journey of teaching and learning in a better manner, in a way more supportive, and you are not alone. So sometimes we will say teaching journey can be hard and can be stressful. So why not? Let's go together, hand in hand, bridging the gap and building community. So there I go. Thank you very much for listening. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer your questions. Back to you, Ivan.
Thank you so much, Hui Qin. If I could ask, before we move into the Q&A session, could I ask everybody to show your appreciation and type clap into the chat box? That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think that it has been a fantastic presentation that you gave, and I think one of the key points, and I think that this is something that affects so many people. Whilst I'm talking, also, if you do have any questions, do put them in the Q&A box. But I think that you separated out the members of a community into the leaders, the supporters, and the members. And I noticed a comment very, very early on from Sri that said that he thought that all members of a community should be supporters. And I think that that is a critically important thing. That sometimes is what stops people from joining a community. The feeling that you must commit, that when you join a community, you have to do something. So I think that this is a question that I would love to ask you again, which is, how important are the members? Why are they so important?
Members are important because from members, they can be cultivated, motivated, then they will become supporters. And one day, when people come and go, that is the real world, and these supporters, they can become the leaders one day. So where in a community, we are talking about how are we going to continue the continuity of the mission of a community. I think that's important. So members are important because on the way, when they grow, they become supporters, and supporters can eventually become leaders. And leaders, eventually, some retire, some left, and that is how our teaching and learning spirit goes on all the way. And I think that is why we are so passionate about education. That's the spirit.
I totally agree. And we had a very long conversation together before we put the presentation together. And I think that it's important actually for everybody, if you're building a community as well, just to understand that. Do you have any advice for people that are trying to build a community about how best to explain that to their potential members and to their potential supporters? You know, what advice would you give somebody who's created a community to help them ease the worries of people that they want to join?
I would say, first of all, we can tell them if we have the common interest. I think sometimes if you have the common interest, it's easier for you to talk to each other. Like, for example, I am from Toastmasters, and public speaking and leadership is one of my interests. And I'll say, are you interested in being a better speaker? If you're interested, why not we join the community together and let's grow. So I would say most of the time teachers, they focus on a lot on professionalism, that like, how am I going to help the students? Then how about you? You as a teacher, are you being supported? Are you still intentionally growing? So I would say all students should be supported, and all teachers should be supported as well. If you have that kind of passion and that kind of interest to grow together, join a community. Let's grow together. I think that's how we say bridging gaps.
Indeed, indeed. We've got quite a few questions also in the chat that have focused a lot on the number of people involved in a community. I'll start with one from Francisca, which is a leader. I mean, I think her question here is, what happens if you have more than one leader? And I would expand on that question and say, what happens when you different numbers? You gave 2 to 6 leaders. What is the ideal number in your mind? Is there a number that's too many, and why? What happens at that point?
Thank you. So it depends on how big your community you want it to be. For a very big community, surely you need more leaders to manage, and each one of them, they will have different responsibilities. But let's say if you want to start with a 5-people community, then you only need one. One leader will be the one who is trying to organize everything. For example, let's decide how often we want to meet. That's one thing. And then, of course, the number of people, it depends how well you can work together. I would say if I don't know if like any of you have done this personality test, DISC. Me as a person, my I and D, they are very high. And my C and S, they are very low. So if I want someone to work with me, someone who I can talk to or can complement with my personality, I should look for someone with more S and C, and of course we can communicate with each other. So I think that's a part of learning. When we form community, we are working together and working with different people. So take the person, put them on the right post, and that person will perform and go to a higher level. So that is why sometimes teachers, we have different personalities and we have different learning styles. That is why selecting the person and put them on the right post should be what the leader look into, and that comes leadership.
Indeed, indeed. In that situation, then what you're looking at is potentially a lot of different people with a lot of different aspects, different personalities. And as you say, I mean, there are times when you have people that have the same personality and you gel well with as individuals. But if you really want a community to work well, you need to be thinking about people that complement what you do, people that are often polar opposites. We had an interesting question that's almost the exact opposite. And the question, this is from, let me see if I can find the question again. I think it's from Jenna. It says, can a community be made up from only 2 people? I mean, is there a number that's too small? Obviously, if it's one, it's not really a community, it's an individual. Can a community be too small?
When it's too small, it's like you are limited because you have limited resources. If let's say there are only 2 people, you are working as partners. If there are only 2 of you, why don't you get more people together and work on the same interests? I think there are a lot of people out there who share the same vision or same mission as you. And what you need to do is just ask. So when you ask, I believe there'll be more people joining, And you'll find that it's amazing working with people together towards the same mission. And that is how growth happens, and you'll be better in your journey of teaching.
Indeed, I mean, you could consider that the two-person community is essentially a seed for a larger community. And the way that you attract people is by doing as well. When people see what you're doing, then they may want to join as well. I think it's back to that question also about how do you attract people and how do you make sure that you bring down the barrier of entry, make sure that people don't feel that they're having to commit too much. There was another question here, quite an interesting one. I think that this might make you smile as much as it made me, but it's very, very important. And this was unfortunately submitted anonymously. I'm not sure who raised the question, but the question was, how do you deal with pessimistic or negative thinkers in the group?
Yeah, exactly. There are all kinds of people that makes the world fun. So how are we going to consider all these people who are pessimists and negative people? I would say you would need someone who is positive, because most of the time in public speaking, we say people won't remember your content. Most of the time, 70% of the content will be forgotten after this. I hope my content is not forgotten, but they will remember the feeling. So what kind of feeling are you trying to give? Pessimists, they did not choose to be pessimists. They are in that environment. So why not come to another environment in a community that provide positive vibes? Then they won't change overnight, of course, but gradually they'll be influenced and they will be happier. That happens in my group, actually. I had teachers who were not happy in their job. And then we had this community, we shared the burden, because most of the time, they only need someone to be there to support, to help, to provide different alternatives. So if their needs are fulfilled, then they'll be happier. Gradually, they have the potential to become the supporters or even leaders, I would say.
No, indeed. I mean, I think that one of the things that it's easy to forget is that people, if they are pessimistic or negative, there's generally a reason. So, I mean, one of the things that's important to do is to find out what that is. And you can find that people that are pessimistic or negative from your perspective may actually just be very, very passionate. And if you can divert the passion in a different way, they can be just as important to you in a positive way, in a positive direction. We've also had a couple of questions here in the chat about slightly different. I mean, we're talking about teacher communities here and how you build a community for yourself and your peers, a professional community. But it's also true that as a teacher and as an educator, what you're doing is you're also putting in and building up the capabilities and ideas within your students. Do you have any suggestions as a teacher about how you might be able to, as a teacher, create communities within your students as well?
Creating communities among students is a good idea. However, most of the time, as we teachers, we are taking the initiative for them to form the community, which might backfire. Because why? I'm a high school teacher, so my students are high school students. They might not want it. So we get in only if there are students who say, teacher, I'd like to form a community. Can you help? Then that is the time we tell them, okay, you can start with 2 people. Then these are the seeds, and try to get more people. I remember there was it was 2 years ago, my students, they actually formed their own community of preparing for an important examination, external examination. And then they say, teacher, so how should we delegate our tasks, our roles in this group? I say, do what you are best at. So like, for example, since this is a study group, a study community, then if you are good at that particular subject, that person could lead. If another person is better in another subject, then you change the role. So it doesn't matter. It's not absolute. It depends. So I think if they are happy in the community, they contribute. So the students should take the initiative, I think.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. I think that you cannot create a community just by telling people to do it. The whole purpose of the community, and if you think about your rings as well, the leaders, the supporters, and the members, those are not determined by somebody else. A leader needs to want to lead or needs to feel comfortable in leading. And the supporters need to be supportive of the idea. They need to believe in the idea and want to commit a certain amount of time, not lots of time, but a certain amount of time. And the members are just people that show interest. And you can't force people into any of those rules. They kind of grow organically, don't they? Very, very, very much. They grow organically. Do you have any thoughts about when, for example, a community would be best splitting into multiple communities? I mean, do you ever think that there would be a time when a community needs to break into two in order to stay sensible or to stay relevant?
Think they can still be in a big community, but then they are different project groups. And like this morning, I think Lindsay talked about this multimodal. I think it's very interesting. And then maybe some of you in the community, you are interested in this and you want to look into more. How are we going to adapt this concept in our teaching? Then there can be a project group. After that, this project group can share what you have found to all the community, and everyone can grow together. Just like in our group of teachers, there are around 30 of them. They were actually collaborating together using different levels. Like for example, they are teaching the junior level. They do have their own group. And teaching senior level, they have their own group as well. So it doesn't need to be separated. But if only some of you are interested in certain area, why don't you form another project group among the community? So when we talk about community, it's like supporting each other. It doesn't need to be split, but it can grow. That's what I think.
No, indeed. I mean, in fact, if you look at many of the teacher organizations that you find across the world, you'll find a larger organization and underneath it, many special interest groups as well. And I think one of the interesting things there that you can, I mean, if you reflect upon, is that a leader for the overall group may actually be a supporter or even a member of one of the subgroups inside. And I think that that's also interesting, that depending where your passion, your interests, and your abilities lie, you may be a leader for one part of the organization, a supporter for a different part, and a member for a different part. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Here's something else that I think is quite interesting. A number of people here have asked about, you know, how do you delegate, or how do you understand which role you're in? What are your thoughts on, I guess, I mean, the words situational management come in, but I also think, you know, in terms of when you have a group of people together, people might gravitate towards somebody who is maybe the planner, and somebody who is maybe the social event organizer, and somebody who is you know, the speaker. What are your thoughts about that? About how the roles kind of fit depending on what's needed and who's available?
Yes, I think it is very important to know everyone's commitment. Some of us, like we have a family, and then the time that we can contribute is limited, but we have unlimited knowledge to contribute in it. So it depends. We normally would delegate the time to things that you are really good at. And if you are willing to share, for example, I can learn software and apps very quickly. That's my interest. And so I will attend those webinars or workshops that I can get new ideas about new tools. Then after that, I share. And some people, they are more into different areas and they learn it and they can share. So when we are in this teaching industry, in the education industry, sometimes we are not competitors. We never are competitors. We should be working together. We are actually teammates. It's not that when you are good, then I will be bad. It's like we grow together. Since we are telling students personal growth is important, lifelong learning is important, then we ourselves, we can do it as well. So I would say, how do you see it? I would say it's the willingness of that member? I hope I answered the question.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, I mean, we're drawing to a close now, so I think that that's the perfect way also to end the presentation on such a positive note as well. You know, we're here to cooperate, we're here to collaborate, and if you build a community, things will happen, great things will happen. I couldn't agree more.